They came without warning, descending upon Earth like a plague from the darkest corners of the galaxy. The alien invaders, a ruthless species known as the Xylarites, were unlike anything humanity had ever encountered. Towering and grotesque, their technology far surpassed even our most advanced defenses. The Xylarites were driven by a singular purpose: the complete eradication of the human race. They had scoured countless worlds, leaving nothing but ash and ruin in their wake, and now they had set their sights on Earth. From the moment the first Xylarite ships breached the atmosphere, the destruction was swift and merciless. Entire cities were obliterated within minutes, reduced to craters of smoldering debris. The sky turned black as alien warships blotted out the sun, their energy weapons raining down death from above. The Xylarites unleashed biological horrors that ravaged the land, turning once thriving ecosystems into barren wastelands. Humanity fought back with everything it had: nuclear missiles, orbital defenses, and ground forces, but nothing could halt the relentless onslaught. Panic spread like wildfire across the globe. Governments collapsed under the pressure, unable to coordinate a unified defense against the invaders. In the streets, chaos reigned as people fled in terror, searching for any means of escape. Those who survived the initial attacks soon realized that there was no refuge, no place on Earth safe from the Xylarites' wrath. As the death toll climbed into the billions, a grim realization took hold: humanity was facing extinction. In the midst of this apocalypse, a small group of individuals refused to accept their fate. Scientists, military leaders, and a handful of survivors banded together in secret, driven by a desperate hope. They knew that Earth was lost, but they were determined to ensure that humanity's legacy would not be extinguished. They devised a plan, one that would require them to abandon their home planet but would preserve the essence of their civilization. This coalition, operating in the shadows, gathered the best minds and resources that remained. They knew they had to act quickly, for time was running out. Under the guise of final, futile defense efforts, they secretly began construction of a massive fleet. These ships were to be unlike any humanity had ever built, designed not for immediate war, but for a future battle, one that would occur long after Earth had fallen. As the Xylarites closed in, the coalition finalized their plans. They selected a distant star system, far beyond the reach of the invaders, where they could escape and lay the groundwork for humanity's return. This was not an exodus of survival, but one of vengeance. They swore that one day, their descendants would return to the galaxy, armed with the knowledge and power needed to exact retribution against those who had destroyed their world. The night before their departure, the survivors gathered for one final moment on Earth. The sky above them burned with the remnants of human civilization, yet they stood defiant, their hearts heavy with both grief and resolve. They knew they would never see their home again, that they were the last of their kind to walk on Earth's soil. But they also knew that they carried within them the hope of a future where humanity's spirit would rise again. As the coalition launched their ships into the darkness, they looked back one last time at the planet that had given them life. Earth was a dying ember in the vastness of space, but they vowed that it would not be forgotten. With a final burst of energy, the fleet activated its cloaking systems, vanishing from sight as they set a course for the distant stars. In the silence of space, the last echoes of humanity's presence on Earth faded away. The planet, once vibrant and teeming with life, was now a graveyard, left to the Xylarites' insidious occupation. But the coalition had succeeded in their mission. They had preserved the legacy of humanity, hidden away in the depths of the cosmos, waiting for the day when they would return to claim their revenge. The Xylarites continued their destruction, unaware that a seed of resistance had been planted far beyond their reach. Humanity was not gone, it was merely biding its time, preparing for the moment when it would rise from the ashes and strike back against those who had sought to erase it from existence. The final days of Earth had passed, but the war for humanity's survival had only just begun. The exodus began under the cover of darkness, shrouded in secrecy known only to those within the coalition. The few remaining human leaders orchestrated a plan that required the utmost precision and silence. The Xylarites had eyes everywhere, and any sign of escape could mean immediate annihilation. Despite the chaos consuming the planet, the coalition managed to communicate through secure, encrypted channels, coordinating the movement of key personnel and resources. It was a desperate gambit, but with Earth teetering on the edge of destruction, there was no other choice. Leaving Earth was an agonizing decision. Every survivor knew that once they departed, there would be no return. The journey to their new home was fraught with peril. Navigating the vastness of space required avoiding detection by Xylerite patrols, and each jump through hyperspace was a calculated risk. The Coalition had chosen a star system at the very edge of known space, a place so remote that even the most advanced alien sensors would struggle to find them. This system, unnamed and uncharted, offered the best chance of survival and secrecy. Upon arrival, the survivors were faced with a barren world, devoid of life but rich in the raw materials needed for their plan. The planet, harsh and unforgiving, became the cradle of humanity's rebirth. The initial settlement was rudimentary, a collection of prefabricated structures hastily assembled to provide shelter from the elements. Life was hard, the environment brutal, but the survivors were driven by a singular purpose. They knew that every moment spent in struggle was a step closer to their ultimate goal, revenge. The Coalition wasted no time in beginning the construction of the fleet. This was not just any fleet, it was to be the most advanced armada ever conceived, a testament to human ingenuity and resilience. Drawing upon the combined knowledge of the brightest minds, they began designing ships that could withstand the harshest conditions, equipped with weapons far beyond anything seen before. Each ship was a masterpiece, built with materials mined from the planet itself, and infused with technologies that had been in development even before Earth's fall. As the fleet took shape, the importance of each vessel became symbolic. These ships were more than just instruments of war, they were the embodiment of humanity's will to survive and their vow to return. The Coalition members poured everything they had into the construction, knowing that this fleet represented the last hope for their species. It was a monumental task, requiring not only advanced technology but also the cooperation of every survivor. Engineers, scientists, laborers, each person contributed to the effort, united by the same unyielding determination. While the fleet was being built, another task was undertaken with equal urgency: the preservation of humanity's history and culture. The Coalition understood that their mission was not just about survival, but about ensuring that the story of Earth and its people would never be forgotten. They meticulously recorded every aspect of human knowledge, from the arts and sciences to the stories and traditions that defined their civilization. Libraries of data were stored in the most secure and resilient formats, designed to withstand the passage of time and the rigors of space travel. But it wasn't just facts and figures that were preserved. The Coalition recognized the importance of memory, of keeping alive the emotions and experiences that made humanity what it was. Personal accounts, diaries, and recorded messages were collected, ensuring that future generations would understand not just what had happened, but how it had felt. These archives were embedded deep within the fleet, guarded as preciously as the ships themselves. The process of building the fleet and preserving humanity's legacy was long and arduous, but the survivors were driven by an unwavering resolve. They knew that they were not just constructing machines of war, they were crafting a future. Each day of labor was a step towards a day when they would return to the galaxy, not as refugees, but as avengers. The fleet became a symbol of hope and defiance, a promise that the horrors inflicted upon Earth would not go unpunished. As the years passed, the survivors forged a new society on their adopted world. They were no longer just refugees, they were the custodians of humanity's future. The fleet, growing in size and power, was a constant reminder of their purpose. Every completed ship was a milestone, every successful test a confirmation that they were on the right path. The Coalition had become a new kind of civilization, one that carried within it the fire of vengeance and the light of humanity's enduring spirit. They knew the day would come when the fleet would be ready, when their long exile would end, and they would finally take their place in the galaxy once more. The Coalition members, once ordinary people, had transformed into something extraordinary, a community forged in the crucible of extinction, unified by their shared purpose. They were no longer just the last remnants of humanity, they were its future, armed and prepared to reclaim what had been lost. The fleet stood as a silent sentinel, waiting for the moment when it would unleash the fury of a species wronged, a force that the galaxy would never forget. As generations passed, the story of Earth's destruction became the bedrock of a new civilization. The survivors, once scattered and desperate, had formed a cohesive society driven by a singular purpose: revenge. The children born on this harsh new world grew up hearing tales of the blue planet that had been their ancestors' home, a place now reduced to myth and legend. Yet these stories were more than just folklore; they were lessons, passed down with unwavering resolve. Every child learned of the Xylerites' betrayal, the horrors unleashed upon Earth, and the promise made by the first survivors to one day return and avenge their fallen race. With each passing generation, the memory of Earth remained vivid, preserved in the archives and in the hearts of the people. This collective memory shaped their society, molding it into one focused on survival and retribution. Education was rigorous, designed not only to teach basic skills but to instill a deep-seated hatred for the alien invaders who had stolen their birthright. The descendants of the original survivors were taught from an early age that they were the last hope of humanity, destined to reclaim what was lost and punish those responsible. Living in an unforgiving environment, these descendants became hardened, their bodies and minds adapting to the harsh realities of their new home. They grew stronger, more resilient, their technological prowess advancing far beyond what their ancestors had ever imagined. Each generation improved upon the work of the last, perfecting the tools of war that would one day be unleashed upon the galaxy. Their cities, once simple shelters, evolved into sprawling metropolises, centers of innovation and military strategy. Every advancement was a step closer to fulfilling the ancient vow, a testament to humanity's indomitable spirit. The fleet, now a vast armada hidden beneath the surface of their world, became a living legend among the people. For centuries, it lay dormant, a silent guardian waiting for the right moment to strike. Engineers and scientists maintained the ships, updating their systems with each technological breakthrough, ensuring that they remained at the cutting edge of warfare. The fleet was more than just a collection of ships; it was the embodiment of humanity's wrath, a force of nature that would one day be unleashed upon those who had dared to challenge them. The moment of awakening came not with a sudden revelation, but as a gradual realization that the time had come. The descendants, now fully aware of their power and potential, began to prepare for the inevitable war. Their society, built on the foundations of vengeance, was ready. Military leaders devised strategies, engineers fine-tuned the fleet, and the entire population rallied behind the cause. There was no question of if they would go to war, only when. As the decision was made, the descendants gathered to witness the awakening of the fleet. It was a moment steeped in solemnity and anticipation. The ships, once dormant, began to stir, their engines humming to life for the first time in centuries. Lights flickered on, weapons systems activated, and the colossal vessels slowly emerged from their hidden vaults. The air was thick with the weight of history, as the descendants stood in awe of the power they had inherited. The awakening of the fleet was more than a technical achievement; it was a rite of passage, a transition from mere survival to active retribution. The descendants felt the gravity of their ancestors' promise, understanding that they were the ones chosen to fulfill it. As the fleet rose into the sky, a collective resolve solidified among the people. They would not rest until the Xylerites were eradicated, until justice was served for the destruction of Earth. Preparation for war was swift and efficient. The descendants, now a formidable force, began to train for the impending conflict. Their society, already militarized, shifted fully into wartime production. Every resource was allocated towards the mission, every mind focused on the goal. The fleet's weaponry, now enhanced with the latest technology, was tested and retested to ensure perfection. Simulations of battles were conducted, strategies refined, and contingencies planned for every possible scenario. There was no room for error. This was the culmination of centuries of effort, the moment they had been born to achieve. As the fleet prepared to depart, the descendants took a final moment to honor their ancestors. They gathered in the central square of their capital, where a monument to Earth had been erected, a towering obelisk inscribed with the names of those who had fallen in the Xylerite invasion. The leaders of the society addressed the people, reminding them of the sacrifices made to bring them to this point. There was no call for glory or conquest, only a somber reminder of their duty. They were not going to war for expansion or power, but for justice, for the memory of their lost home. The fleet, now fully operational and manned by the best and brightest of the descendants, began its final checks before departure. The people watched as the colossal ships lifted off, their engines roaring as they ascended into the cold void of space. The descendants knew that this was only the beginning. The journey ahead would be long and fraught with danger, but they were ready. They had spent centuries preparing for this moment, and now, at last, they would fulfill the promise made by their ancestors. The fleet, a colossal armada crafted over centuries, embarked on its return journey to the galaxy with a singular purpose. As they left the isolation of their distant star system, the descendants felt the weight of history pressing down on them. This was not just a mission, it was the fulfillment of a promise made long before they were born. The journey through the vastness of space was eerily silent, the stars passing by like distant memories. Every person aboard the fleet understood the gravity of what lay ahead. They were returning not as refugees, but as avengers, carrying with them the legacy of a fallen world. As they re-entered the galaxy, the first thing that struck them was how much had changed. The once familiar constellations had shifted over the millennia, and the political landscape of the galaxy was unrecognizable. The descendants scanned the cosmos, gathering data and observing the movements of various alien civilizations. They quickly realized that the galaxy had moved on from the time of humanity's demise. New powers had risen, some more advanced than the Xylarites, others caught in endless conflicts of their own. But none of these powers had any knowledge of Earth, its people, or the impending storm that was now approaching. The fleet's leaders, hardened by generations of preparation, knew that their first priority was to gather intelligence. They dispatched covert units to infiltrate alien networks, hacking into communication systems and surveillance grids. The descendants moved with the precision of predators, slipping unnoticed through the cracks of galactic society. The data they gathered painted a picture of a galaxy teeming with life, yet ignorant of the fleet's existence. It was clear that the Xylarites, the architects of humanity's downfall, still held significant influence, their empire sprawling across multiple star systems. However, the Xylarites had grown complacent, secure in the belief that humanity was long extinct. The first encounters with alien species were handled with cold efficiency. The fleet avoided direct conflict, instead using their advanced technology to remain hidden while they gathered more information. Infiltration teams observed alien cultures, languages, and military capabilities, cataloging every detail for future use. The few aliens who stumbled upon the fleet were quickly neutralized, their ships and records erased from existence. The fleet's presence remained a ghostly whisper, an unknown threat lurking in the darkness. As the data poured in, the fleet's leaders convened to formulate their strategy. The goal was clear: strike at the heart of the Xylarite Empire, dismantle their power structure, and exact revenge for the destruction of Earth. But they knew that a direct assault would be too risky, even with their superior technology. Instead, they opted for a series of calculated strikes, designed to destabilize the Xylarites and turn their allies against them. The fleet would first target key infrastructure, communications hubs, and supply lines, crippling the Xylarite ability to coordinate a defense. Then they would move on to the outer colonies, inciting rebellion among the subjugated species. The plan was meticulously detailed, with contingencies for every possible scenario. The fleet's commanders, chosen for their tactical brilliance, devised ways to exploit the weaknesses of their enemies. They knew that the Xylarites were arrogant, relying on their reputation as invincible conquerors to keep the galaxy in line. The fleet would use this arrogance against them, striking in ways the Xylarites would never expect. Deception, subterfuge, and overwhelming force would be their tools. The goal was not just to win battles, but to break the spirit of the Xylarite Empire, to make them fear the return of the very species they had once sought to annihilate. As the fleet finalized its preparations, a tense calm settled over the armada. The descendants, now fully aware of the task before them, steeled themselves for the coming conflict. They had trained for this moment their entire lives, but now that it was upon them, the reality of war loomed large. There was no turning back, no second chances. The fleet would either succeed in its mission, or it would be destroyed in the attempt. The anticipation was palpable, every person aboard the ships feeling the weight of the coming storm. The fleet's commanders issued final orders, reviewing battle plans and ensuring that every ship was in peak condition. The weapons were primed, the engines ready for combat maneuvers, and the soldiers prepared for deployment. The silence before the battle was oppressive, broken only by the hum of the fleet's systems and the quiet murmurs of those offering final words of encouragement or prayer. The descendants knew that the moment of truth was at hand, and they embraced it with the resolve passed down through generations. Then, the signal was given. The fleet, no longer hiding in the shadows, began its assault. Ships emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation, descending upon the Xylarite territories with a precision that defied comprehension. The first targets were obliterated before the Xylarites even realized they were under attack. Communications arrays, supply depots, and military outposts were vaporized in seconds, leaving the Xylarites reeling in confusion. Panic spread through the alien empire as the fleet unleashed its fury, each strike calculated to sow chaos and fear. As the initial wave of destruction subsided, the Xylarites scrambled to mount a defense, only to find their efforts thwarted at every turn. The fleet moved like a phantom, appearing in one system, delivering a devastating blow, and then vanishing before reinforcements could arrive. The descendants, trained in the art of war from birth, executed their plans with ruthless efficiency. For the first time in millennia, the Xylarites faced an enemy they could not understand, let alone defeat. The fleet's first strike was a masterclass in destruction. Coordinated with surgical precision, the armada emerged from the depths of space like an unstoppable force, descending upon the Xylarite core worlds with a fury that had been centuries in the making. The alien empire, once the apex predator of the galaxy, was caught completely off guard. The initial targets, key military installations, communication hubs, and command centers, were obliterated within moments. The devastation was absolute. Entire fleets were vaporized before they could even power up their shields. Planetary defenses crumbled under the onslaught of advanced weaponry that defied comprehension. Shockwaves of fear rippled through the galaxy as news spread of the fleet's arrival. The Xylarites, known for their brutality and arrogance, were now on the receiving end of the very terror they had once inflicted. Their cries for help went unanswered, as the galaxy watched in stunned silence, unsure of what to make of this phantom force that had appeared from nowhere. The fleet moved with terrifying efficiency, striking with an intensity that left no room for retaliation. This was not a battle, it was an execution. With their initial objectives achieved, the descendants shifted their focus to the systematic dismantling of the Xylarite Empire. This was no mere act of revenge, it was the erasure of an entire civilization from history. The fleet divided into strike groups, each one tasked with targeting specific regions of the Empire. No planet was spared, no colony overlooked. The descendants employed their advanced weaponry with ruthless precision, deploying planet-cracking devices, gravitational disruptors, and other horrors beyond imagination. The Xylarites, who had once reveled in their technological superiority, found themselves outmatched at every turn. There was no mercy in the descendants' hearts, no hesitation in their actions. The fleet was driven by the collective will of a people who had waited millennia for this moment. Each strike was a statement, a declaration that humanity had returned not as victims, but as victors. The Xylarite forces, once feared throughout the galaxy, were decimated. Their ships, their soldiers, their very worlds fell like dominoes before the unstoppable advance of the fleet. The empire that had once spanned countless star systems was reduced to a scattered, leaderless husk, its remnants fleeing into the farthest reaches of space, hoping in vain to escape the wrath of the descendants. The climax of this campaign came in the form of the final confrontation between the fleet and the last bastion of Xylarite power. The alien empire, cornered and desperate, rallied its remaining forces for one last stand. The Xylarite homeworld, once a shining beacon of their dominance, became the battleground for this ultimate showdown. The descendants knew that this battle would be the culmination of their ancestors' promise, the moment when humanity's vengeance would be fully realized. As the fleet descended upon the Xylarite homeworld, the battle that ensued was nothing short of apocalyptic. The Xylarites threw everything they had into the fight, unleashing their most powerful weapons and deploying their most elite warriors. But it was all in vain. The descendants, driven by the memories of a lost Earth and the fire of centuries of preparation, fought with a ferocity that overwhelmed even the most hardened Xylarite defenders. The sky above the alien world burned as ship after ship was torn apart by the fleet's superior firepower. On the ground, the once proud cities of the Xylarites were reduced to rubble, their mighty fortresses shattered under the relentless bombardment. In the end, the Xylarite homeworld fell, its surface scorched and lifeless. The descendants stood victorious, their mission complete. The empire that had once sought to erase humanity from existence was itself erased, its history rewritten by those it had wronged. The fleet, now the undisputed master of the galaxy, had fulfilled its purpose. The promise made by the last survivors of Earth had been kept. In the aftermath of the campaign, the galaxy was left to grapple with the reality of what had transpired. The once feared Xylarite Empire was no more, its territories now under the control of the fleet. Other alien species, who had watched the events unfold with a mixture of fear and awe, now faced a new order. The descendants, though victorious, had no desire for conquest or dominion. They had come for one purpose only: to avenge their ancestors and ensure that humanity's legacy was never forgotten. As the fleet returned to their adopted world, the descendants reflected on what they had achieved. The mission, which had spanned generations, was now complete. There was a deep sense of satisfaction, but also a profound awareness of the cost. They had become the instrument of a vengeance that had reshaped the galaxy, and in doing so, they had cemented humanity's place in the annals of history. The memory of Earth, once a distant echo, was now a blazing beacon that would never be extinguished.